Let me hone in on the UK, because we're in the UK and I think it's always fair to talk about them. What makes them look undervalued to you? Yeah, from your opinion. And not only that, on the flip side, if it is does undervalue always mean a good deal? Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes it doesn't, right?
Well, for the UK, you've got to go back in time a little bit to see how we got to where we are today. The UK went through a period after the Brexit referendum vote in 2016 where global investors thought, I don't know what's going to happen. And the whole political process was pretty chaotic in terms of how it was handled. So for many global investors, they took the view that it's uninvestable because we have no idea what's going to happen next. So the UK kind of fell off the radar screen. Then we had a political chaos for a few years as well. And the UK also became viewed as perhaps it's not a very well-run country. So while that was happening, people were really ignoring the UK. And it at the same time had a mix of industries in the stock market, which were out of favour, weren't fashionable. So those didn't have any big IT companies, for example. It had oil and gas companies, it had commodity companies, it had banks. It did have some global healthcare companies, pharmaceutical companies. It had some consumer goods companies that were also world brands. So it has this strange collection of businesses, which are, it's really like you're buying the world. So you're buying quite a few global industries because most of the big companies are actual global companies. They're not really anything much to do with the UK. So you had this global basket of businesses. So when you compare those industries and what you'd normally pay to own them globally, and then you look at what you're paying to own them here, there was a discount because people, for the reasons I mentioned, had ignored the UK, weren't sure what was going to happen.
Right, okay.
And so the money had gone elsewhere. So that can go on for quite a long time, but eventually a gap opens up and investors are rational. And so what's happened in the last few years is suddenly those factors that were counting against the UK are now more in favour of the UK. So it has a bit more political stability than it had before, and it has more stability than other countries had before. As well as that, it has not been as heavily impacted in the tariff changes as other countries have. And all of those things together with the valuations on offer mean that that's attractive. And you see that because the businesses themselves are buying back their own shares with their excess capital. And you see that because private equity firms are buying UK businesses and continue to buy UK businesses. And the final thing I'll mention on the UK is there was a big headwind for many years, which had come from the fact that 25, 30 years ago, UK pension funds, most of their equities were UK equities. And over the last 20 years, they've reduced the amount they have in equities as the people in those pension schemes have got older. And at the same time, within equities, they've also dropped the amount of UK as a share of those equities dramatically. So you've had this constant selling down. You've now got to a point where it's small enough for that not to be a factor anymore. So it's a bit like, someone's been pushing down something and all of a sudden they stop pushing down on something. So all of those reasons mean that the UK is a bit of a Cinderella. And with these things, again, you as an investor, it pays to take a longer term view. And so while something might be undervalued for a while, eventually that value gets recognized. The issue with valuation is when you've not properly taken into account the fact that things are getting a lot worse and actually the asset is not as valuable as you thought it was. And so you get it. So I think the point that you were hinting at was really, look, can you be sure about these valuations? And so they've been heavily stress tested on a whole variety of different situations, and there's a very sound basis for them.